Hey, how about you, everybody? Welcome into the newest edition of the Auburn Live Show. We have got another addition to our lineup of shows. We're going inside the 20 with Jeffrey Lee and Keith Niebuhr today. We're going to do it all in 20 minutes. We're going to give you two quick snippets each week, 20-minute snippets on Auburn's recruiting. We're going to start next week doing on offense on a Monday, maybe defense on Wednesday. And we're going to do it all inside 20 minutes. As I said, I'm your host, Jeffrey Lee. I'm joined by Mr. Keith Niebuhr. Mr. Keith Niebuhr, I think your screen is frozen. Oh, it's just a picture. How you doing, big dog?
Yeah, I'm good. What's going on, brother?
So I kind of like our little style here, man. We've got a 20 minutes to get in as much as we can about Auburn recruiting. We're going to do it 2 days a week. One day, starting next week, we're going to do offense one day. We're going to do defense another day. Today, we're just kind of going to give everybody a roundup of what's kind of going on this week, things to look forward to. Keith, I know you've been on the road. You went and saw Janoris Wilson. When was it? Monday?
Correct.
And really like where Auburn stands with him, which would be huge.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about, he's a 3-star guy, but Auburn's got him with kind of, a 4-star rating in the staff room. They've really prioritized this guy. I went and watched him practice, and he's 6'4", but he is built like a tackle. He's lean. And he's got that reach. So he says he's Auburn's recruiting him at tackle. And that's where he expects to be if he goes to Auburn. And we think he is going to go to Auburn. But he also said, hey, I can play anywhere along the offensive line. Interesting story with him is, he was at Big Cat Weekend with his mom. And they were really pushing him to commit the last weekend in July at Auburn. And his mom was pushing him to commit. That was her first trip there. She fell in love with Auburn. He didn't. He resisted. He kind of wanted to take a step back.
He didn't commit.
That's right. He did not.
He didn't fall in love with Auburn. Okay.
He did. He fell in love with Auburn, but he didn't commit. And that's okay too, because, you want to, do you want a kid to commit on the sugar high? Yeah, that's nice. But sometimes you want him to get home, reflect on it, and see where they really stand. And right now he says Auburn has a huge lead, and others in the mix, UCF, Missouri, and North Carolina. Now he's at a new school, Jeff, and they are a state power, Lakeland High School. He's going to get a lot more attention this year. He's got 5-star Cormani McClain in the secondary. They got, a dozen Division I guys on the roster. He's going to get more looks and probably more offers. But right now, Auburn doesn't seem to have too much to worry about. He's going to officially visit for the Penn State game. He'll come in that day on the 17th. And I think Auburn's going to probably wrap this one up in the fairly near future. At least that's where I think it is right now. I think you agree with me.
I do. And I tell you, man, I was really surprised at the headline you have for him, because this is something that we used to see in the business a lot. So-and-so leads. They're my leader. You just don't see that anymore. You now see, top groups and stuff, but you hardly ever see a kid come out and name a leader. I was really surprised to see that. It's not something we see a lot. I can't think of the last kid that I wrote about that said Auburn's my leader. They're up there. Maybe they're at the top. You know who I think it might have been? It might have been N. Jaffrard a week before.
Yeah.
A week before he committed to Arkansas.
Yeah, go ahead.
And then he said he was going to wait until December. The next week he went to Arkansas, committed on the spot.
I'll tell you, Jeff, he mentioned his mom wanting, pushing him to commit, wanting him to go to Auburn. Well, when you got the mama, you're usually going to get the kid. And they are very close. They're so close, they actually run a business together.
Yeah, I saw that.
Called Sweets by Norris. He's Janoris, so Sweets by Norris. And I guess him and his mom kind of cooked, make up like sweets, cupcakes, cakes, things like that. And they got a little business in the Lakeland, Florida area. Pretty cool. But again, that really, now if you're an Auburn fan, why do you care? Well, you care because he's close with his mom, and his mom wants him at Auburn. Okay. In some families, the mom has a lot of say. In some families, maybe the dad has more say. But his mama wants him at Auburn, and I think they're going to be really hard to beat here. And again, he's a priority recruit. Now, that's one of those things where the evaluation in-house is different than the evaluations at On3, at ESPN, at Rivals, at 24/7. They've made this guy a priority, and they've really locked in on him since the time they offered in, I believe it was early June, and I think they're getting close to getting him on board.
Auburn has had some good evaluations, even looking back at like DJ Chester, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
When they were on him hard. He was just a lowly 3-star, and now he's one of the top 250 players in the country. But sticking with the offensive line, Keith, we both agree that's the biggest need. And, going back to what you were saying is Janoris Wilson's kind of a raw guy right now. But Will Friend told me during the coaches interviews that he wanted guys basically from 3 different levels. He wanted high school kids, he wanted junior college kids, he wanted transfer portal kids, and he also wanted kids that were developmental guys. He wanted guys that were able to come in and start, come in and compete for the 2 deep. This to me, on the surface at least, says this is one of those high school developmental guys who he wants in his system for 2 years before he really expects any contribution from him. So this is, to me, a big need. He would fill one of those needy spots and would give Auburn a good foundation for outside guys, which they don't have any right now. They only have Braden Joyner, and we know that they have a huge need as far as numbers goes for offensive line. I'm looking at 5 to 6 high school guys, and then JUCO and transfer portal guys as well. So I'm looking for a big offensive line, because I think Jay had said after this year, Auburn will have 8 scholarship offensive linemen on the roster.
Yeah, it's
you can't even fill out a 2 deep with that.
Yeah, look, they're going to lose at least 6 and maybe 7 of the top guys off this current team. Now, we don't know Nick Brom's status, if he doesn't play, if he plays or doesn't play, but you're still losing him regardless after this season. A guy like Keandre Jones, I think he could come back, but maybe he doesn't. So they're losing a lot of guys, bottom line. And so they've got to get out there. And if they just take JUCO and portal guys, then you're really not building for the future. You're just building for next season and the season after that. So they've got to, you're right, Jeff, they've got to take a balance of high school guys to build for the future, junior college guys that can help over the course of 2 to 3 years, because some of those guys have 3 years of eligibility, and then also transfers who may only have in some cases, may only have 1 year left, a grad transfer, for instance. So you get that 1 year out of that guy as a stopgap, because look, you're always trying to build 2 things at once. And you know this, you're trying to build a team for each year to year, and you're trying to build a program. They're 2 different things, but they work in concert. And Auburn right now, they're, the offensive line recruiting since 2017, that class, Jeff, with Austin Troxell, Nick Brahms, and Calvin Ashley, which, 2 of those guys are still there and starters or first teamers. That's if Nick can play this year. He's got some injury issues. Since then, it's kind of been the Sahara Desert of recruiting, really. It's just been misses and not enough signees, and some evaluations that weren't great, and some times where Auburn swung. And this is across both staffs, by the way. No staff's perfect. We're not trying to be overly critical of anybody, but sometimes Auburn has swung for the fences, missed, circled back, and the kids they circle back to were like, well, no
too
thanks.
late.
Yeah, it's too late. No, you had your chance.
Right.
So it's just been, every school's got a position. Every school's got one, but even the best programs have a position that just they don't recruit as well as others. And this is the one for Auburn. You see what Auburn's done historically at receiver and defensive back, just one guy after the other. But this position group, it's just been really troubling. And again, right now they only have one guy committed, Braden Joyner, center, and that's really the only position he can play. So they've got a lot of work left here, no question about it.
Moving outside, Keith, got some news on the verge of happening. We knew Auburn needed at least 2 wide receivers in this class. The wide receiver position back in the summer was a big area of concern. I think some of these young guys, Camden Brown, have stepped up and given Auburn a little peace of mind at that position. But we know Auburn needs 2. They've got Carmelo English in the boat already. Huge get for first-year wide receivers coach Ike Hilliard. Then you've got DeQuavius Sorey, 4-star wide receiver from Florida, announcing Friday afternoon, I think, Keith. Is that right?
I don't have the time yet, but
Me neither.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think he's announced the time. I think I actually wrote that. But he's announcing, hey, he's got a top group of a top program, Florida, Miami?
Florida, Alabama, I think Georgia, and Florida. Okay. Yeah, well, wait a second. Florida, Alabama, Georgia, and Auburn, I think, are his 4, right?
Okay.
Isn't that the school he keeps mentioning?
Yes. Former Georgia commitment. Florida, I know there was a lot of concern about Florida, but it seems like talking to guys who know more about Florida recruiting than we do, they like him at safety and not so much at wide receiver. They filled up. Keith, you know about those Gators recruiting. They
just don't have room at offense.
There you go.
On offense, to be honest, and that happens. And so people say, well, you didn't. It's he didn't have a spot here, he didn't have a spot there, and he's got a spot at Auburn. But if you really like a guy, you're not worried about all that. You're just worried about making sure you get him. And
don't care how you get him, as long as you get him. Don't care. I hope they pass on, all these kids.
That's
I hope
right.
they fill up and don't have room for a lot of these kids.
You do your own evaluations. You have your own needs. We mentioned this earlier that earlier in the year that they weren't sure what they were going to do maybe at the slot position, a smaller receiver, because they have a few on the roster already. And so we knew that wasn't the priority. We knew that an outside guy would be more of the priority. And, DeQuavius Story, 6'2", I think 185. He comes from an athletic family. Chipley is a small town in the Florida panhandle, but historically good athletes have come out of there, guys that have played Division I football, guys that have played Division I basketball. So even though it's a smaller school area, Chipley, Graceville, Marianna, a lot of those towns have produced good
Niceville.
athletes. That's right. Well, Niceville's a little bigger, but they produced a lot of good athletes. And so it's a good region, a good area. And again, and there's some disparity in the rankings too. I mean, On3 has him as a high 3-star, but the overall industry has him as a 4-star. So, everybody evaluates people differently. But again, he's a guy that most people don't know a ton about. Jeff, he doesn't do a lot of interviews. He isn't a guy that went to camps. So it's basically what you saw on film is a guy that's pretty dang athletic, but that's all you know. That's all you know. We're gonna try to, presuming he commits to Auburn like both of us think he will. We're gonna try to go see him and learn a little bit more about him. But he's got the height that Auburn wants. Auburn's done as well as anybody in the SEC with those big receivers over the last decade, and he's athletic. And,
back in May, I was told by somebody who would know 4 names at wide receiver. This was before Carmelo English committed, but DeQuavius Story was one of the 4. Carmelo English was one of the 4. So if I'm going by that conversation, this was back in May again. Auburn had 0 wide receivers. We're in need of some wide receivers. They're getting 2 of the top 4 guys. And again, this was back in May when even the guy who told me this didn't think Auburn had much of a shot. He thought he would end up at Florida.
Interesting. Well, and I'll say this too. I've been interviewing Ike Hilliard longer than anybody in the Auburn market. That's because he was at the University of Florida the exact same time I was there. But he's always been a high IQ guy. But the reason I mention him is, one, he's the receivers coach at Auburn, but he comes from the NFL. And, that doesn't mean he's smarter than receiver coaches in college that haven't been in the NFL, but he knows what it takes to get in the NFL. He knows what body type. He knows what skill set. He has a specific thing that he's looking for. I think, Jeff, both of you and I have heard that he kind of lone wolfs it, kind of does his own thing out there in the evaluation world. And so, he zeroed in on this guy several months ago. And so that says something. At that time, maybe he was a take at a lot of these schools. I don't know. But, Auburn values him. Auburn thinks he's a surefire 4-star guy. We both heard through the grapevine. So provided that they can get him, and we think he will land with Auburn, it'll be a big pickup. I mean, gosh, that'd be commitment number 8. And you're right, Jeff, they may only sign 3 receivers, and that would give you 2 4-star guys right there. And
then you could maybe make a move or be a little bit more selective. I think David Hopkins was another guy. Adam, that's what I said. Yep. Adam Hopkins, and I was told he's built kind of like Carmelo. He's not that 6'2" guy, but he's a guy who could play outside if you needed him to. I think you get DeQuavius Story, then you can be more selective if you can, or if you will or want to take a 3rd wide receiver. He would certainly be a guy to keep an eye on. Sticking with the specialty, Keith, moving along, but running back. Auburn has Jeremiah Cobb committed. They want 1 more. We've kind of been digging for some names of who are some other top targets. We've known Roderick Robinson. He was probably number 1 on the board from the get-go. Although he probably wasn't the must-have that Jeremiah Cobb is. But Roderick Robinson from San Diego, California. I think he's got some family here in or around.
I think so. In Alabama.
Birmingham, maybe.
Yeah.
He visited back in May. He committed to UCLA shortly thereafter. A lot of people I've talked to the past 2 weeks don't think he's going to end up at UCLA. Don't think it's going to be Auburn by any means, at least not yet. But they do think Auburn's got a shot here. They do think he will come back for an official visit. But another guy, Mike Mitchell, 4-star guy down in Florida, really has the rankings, but apparently the offers have yet to come. And as I've been told, I think even Mike said this, my academics slipped. I didn't realize I was going to be this good.
Well, I'll tell you about Robinson. Let me give you a little thing on him. he played in a game last week. This team won 56-0, but he had 186 yards and 4 touchdowns on only 8 carries, and he played one half.
Great day.
So yeah, that's a day, and we had some video of him that was on Twitter. But you're right. There are people in California, out west, that don't think he's going to stick with UCLA, and then most people out there think many people out there think he's the best back in California. So if you're really high on a guy like that, and Auburn is, and you want that kind of thunder and lightning tandem, you already have Jeremiah Cobb, who's kind of a do everything guy with great acceleration, a little bit on the lanky side. You add this more of a steamroller type running back.
He sure is.
And you could have something here. So, just keep plugging away. And if you can get him back for an official visit, which you wrote, it's very possible, then you might have a shot. If he's thinking about you and he's visiting, you're probably at least somewhat in the game, because you're on his mind. You're on his radar.
I know LSU is the weekend of the LSU game is going to be a weekend to keep an eye on with him. They wanted to get him to the Penn State game, but I think he's going to A&M in Miami that weekend. Or he's going to A&M for the Miami game that September 16th weekend. So I think LSU, that weekend of the LSU game, might be something to keep an eye on there. Keith, 3 minutes left, man. What's overall, man? How do you feel like Auburn sits going into this season?
Well, it's still not great. I don't think it's still the same way, but better than I felt 3-4 weeks ago. And we've gone out and we've seen some guys. We've talked to a bunch of kids. We've covered events, and they're kids are saying good things about Auburn, but so many of them are in wait and see mode. Now, what we don't know is, are they just telling us in Auburn that? Are they just saying, well, let's put it this way, Jeff, it's very hard for a teenager to break up with a girl, right? So what do you do when you don't know how to break up with somebody? You either run away and hide and just don't take their calls, or you kind of come up with a good excuse. So is this an excuse? Are kids just telling Auburn, and this is my potential concern, are they just saying, hey, we really love you. I just want to make sure you're there. If you're there, I'm coming. Are they just saying that to kind of get, take the easy way out, or do they mean it? If they mean it, that gives Auburn a real chance, because with that schedule with the 5 home games to start off, 2 of them being marquee games, Penn State, LSU, and then the third one sandwiched in between them is Missouri, and another SEC game. You're going to have a lot of recruits at that game too. So the opportunity's there. So I feel like if Auburn can make some noise early in the season, that's going to keep things headed in the right direction. I went and spent some time with Ohio State commit Cedric Hawkins last week, safety from Cocoa, Florida. I feel like, even though he's saying he's not going to take visits, that he's locked in with Ohio State. I still think he's clearly somebody to watch. If it doesn't work out with Ohio State, Auburn's right there, maybe FSU as well. Again, I feel better, Jeff, than I did not that long ago, because if Auburn's going to sign 20 guys, let's say, like they did last year, that means you only have 12 more spots after Friday if you pick up DeQuavius Story. Well, 12 spots is not unmanageable over September, October, November, and half a December period. It's absolutely doable. And if you do that, then you still have spots for February. All right, you may pick up a few more, and then you save spots, what's left for transfers. So 8 commitments, it wouldn't be a lot, but again, when you look at the big picture, that still gives you plenty of time to pick up another 12 or so.
Very manageable.
Very manageable. Yeah.
Hey, good stuff, Keith. First episode of Inside the 20. I thought it was great. We're going
fast, man.
Yeah, I know. Time goes by when you're talking a lot, but we're going to do this twice a week, folks. So we're going to try to get as much in as we can in under 20 minutes. We're going to start next week on Monday, maybe with the defense, since we're a little bit majority offense today. We'll start defense on Monday. We'll come back on Wednesday with an Inside the 20 on the offense. Continue this throughout the season, man. I hope we'll have a jam-packed 20-minute pod for you for maybe your ride home from work. If you drive more than 20 minutes to and from work, you probably live in Atlanta. And then,
Jeff, this is a lunchroom, just a quick lunch in your car amount of time to listen to us, or a quick trip to the bathroom, whatever.
20-minute break.
Whatever. Yeah, exactly.
Hey, well, listen, we appreciate everybody listening. Stay tuned to us next week for our new shows. And obviously stay tuned to Auburn Live on 3. We've still got the $1 a year deal going for about 8 more days, Keith. Is that right?
That's right.
8 more days, $1 a year, man. You guys jump on there. Go to our YouTube page, Auburn Live on 3. Like and subscribe. I don't know what it does, but it helps us somehow. And look for a lot of content this weekend. potential commitment coming. Hey, we appreciate everybody. We appreciate Keith Niebuhr. Thanks, Keith. We appreciate you, man. Thanks to Zach in the back. I'm Jeffrey Lee. Stay out of the left lane, please. See you.